Okay, welcome back everybody to Hearts of Iron 3 Black Ice, a tutorial series for version 12 of Black Ice. In this episode, we are going to cover aircraft. Now, for those of you who are returning to the game, some of this you may already know, but I'm hoping if you stick around long enough, maybe you'll learn some new stuff about what the Black Ice mod has done with aircraft, and then perhaps some of this stuff will be a good refresher just to kind of remind you of how things operate. So first, these are your airports, all right here. Now I grabbed Germany because they have the most robust, I think most robust Air Force in 36. So I'm able to show you a bunch of different things. The green is going to be where you have your aircraft currently, and then the red is all vacant airports. So I put everybody in one spot just to make it easier to demonstrate. And then if you go to the different province, it'll show you the level of the airport. So here it's 2. A lot of these are 2. That's a 1, 2, 1, so forth. My experience has been it's 1 for 1. So one airport, level is going to support one airplane. If you have 2 airplanes at a 1, then it's going to reorganize and repair your planes at 50% the capacity. For example, here this is a level 10 airport, and so I can have 10 planes here that'll ensure 100% efficiency rate for these airports in repairing and reorganizing those planes. And when I say reorganize, we'll talk to that in a moment. But notice if I go to the province tab here, click the planes that are here, for example, they're being supplied by Brandenburg, but Brandenburg is only repairing these 2 planes at 50% the efficiency. And the reason is because it can handle up to 10 aircraft in a day, but I have 20 here. So if these planes were in the red or the orange, which is their overall strength, and it's down to like 50%, that means that's 50% of this squadron needs to get repaired. And then say the green is almost all the way down, which is the organization, which is basically how long they can actually remain in the air. That's going to take a lot longer for those to go back up if you have too many planes at your airports. So use all the different airports. It's good to kind of have things spread out, honestly, because then, for example, you can't get bombed and have your planes damaged while they're on the runway. And also, it's a good way to keep your planes in reserve, which I'll talk about in a little bit later in this video about why reserves for aircraft are so important in this game. Now, if you want to expand your airports, so say you want squadrons of 3, and a lot of these places are only 2 or 1, I might say I'm going to take this and I want to increase it to 3. And then that's a 4. I would like that. So that's good. But I want this one a 3. And then what you do is go to your production tab and you'll see that those are now being built. And it costs 3 industrial capacity to build it up. It's a little pricey, but it's worth it if you got somewhere to put your planes. There's, before we go over the stacks here, I'll go through the different types of planes that you have. If you go to Air Wing, you have your CAGs, which I'll talk about last. Your heavy bombers, medium bombers, light and close air support bombers. Those are all your bombers. The red ones are going to be your bombers. Your fighter bomber is kind of a mix of the two. Just think of it like a heavy fighter. Not very maneuverable, but has the capability to act as a fighter while at the same time having some kind of heavy, has some girth to it, so to speak. Don't think aircraft have toughness. Instead, they have like defensive values. But first, so your heavy bomber, what does that do? You notice that compare it to its soft and hard attacks, 19.8. You compare it to other bombers, it's just not nearly as good. The reason for that is it's for strategic attack. That's really the only thing you really should be using this for is strategic attack. Now, what is that? Strategic attack is, say here, I know he's got a fair amount of industrial capacity. What you can do is hurt his economy by going here, right-clicking where you want to go, and hitting strategic bombing. And what that'll do is it'll focus on that industrial capacity in that region. So that's how you use heavy bombers. They are expensive to make. So probably as like Germany, I don't know if I would necessarily be using these. This is more of a, I mean, this is like the US's bread and butter, right? They can afford these. But you notice it's the most expensive plane out of all the planes we can build. Now, these costs will fluctuate as you tech up. So right now, for example, our CAGs are super cheap. That's because our CAGs suck. They're like, I mean, they're these. And so, that price might go up for those, but just know that your heavy bomber is typically going to be your most expensive plane. Now, your medium bomber, that's more for your kind of well-rounded bomber that can be used in any situation. They're going to have better range than your light bombers and your close air support. And so they're kind of like your middle of the pack, jack of all trades bomber. And they're nice to have, honestly, because you can really kind of use them against both infantry and tanks. And then the range. So that's nothing too, is if you look at their range here, this will tell you how far they can go. Obviously, the strategic bomber can go the furthest, and then usually your interceptors go the least distance. But notice here, your fighter bomber can only go 155 right now. Now, again, you can increase these through technology, but just realize that different plane types are going to have different ranges as well as different speeds. And the speed just dictates how quickly they can get to and from point A to point B. I don't believe the speed affects combat. I don't believe so. Now, your light bomber is going to be kind of basically just like a cheaper version of your medium bomber. It's not going to have quite the range either as your medium bomber, but it's cheaper. So as you can see here, it's about almost 2 industrial capacity. It's about 1.5 industrial capacity cheaper, 1.5-ish cheaper than your medium bomber. And then your close air support is going to be good against armor, usually. Now here, ours is good against both soft and armor, but I like to use close air support against armor because their range is not good, like terrible range actually. And so you kind of want to save them for those big targets that you're gonna you want to punch a hole through, for your infantry. Now switching over to fighters before we get to the sea stuff, you got fighter bombers and interceptors. Interceptors are going to be your air-to-air, as you can see here, 67 against air attack. Fighter bombers are 44, so that's pretty good. But notice your fighter bombers can do soft and hard while your interceptors cannot. So this is your air superiority, fighter. And these guys are really meant to escort your bombers. And so you might put 1 or 2 of these in with your bombers to soak up some of the damage that those bombers might take. That's really what these guys are for. Transport planes and gliders are obviously going to be used for your paratroopers. And then you have your water base planes. So your naval bomber is both your naval bomber and flying boats are going to be land based. You usually want to have 1 flying boat with your naval bombers. They help with spotting. They're going to do some damage for sea attack, but really you have them there for their spotting ability. Because as you see here, surface detection, they're a 10, whereas your naval bombers are only 2. And so you're going to want to put them together. Now, ironically, your CAGs right now, at least for Germany, it's -8. So I'm sure if we pulled Japan up, this would be dramatically different. Just know this is their ability while they're in the air to see ships in the ocean water. And it's quite possible you can be in the same ocean tile as a navy and actually not be able to see it unless you have, for example, a flying boat or maybe your own navy in that tile to be able to identify the enemy ships. Now, finally, carrier air group, a couple things with them. So these are the ones that fly off of your aircraft carrier. Your aircraft carrier, depending on the size of the carrier, and it'll tell you in the little tab that you go into, which if you'll get more information about that when I do my Navy tutorial video. Usually you can have 1 or 2 CAGs per aircraft carrier, and it'll tell you how many you can have. So a normal size aircraft carrier is going to be 2, and then a light aircraft carrier, so smaller one's going to be 1. And these are not only expensive to build normally, not in Germany's case, but normally, but they also build the slowest, because apparently what was happening was people were spamming these, and it was people were using the CAGs as land-based planes instead of for the aircraft carriers, because they would just focus all their technology on CAGs, and then it was an exploit for the game. So what they did was they said, you know what, you want to try and spam CAGs, it's fine, we're going to slow down the build time like considerably. So really these are only going to be useful for your aircraft carriers, and you just basically just right click them to a naval port that has an aircraft carrier, and then they'll fly there, and then they'll relocate onto that aircraft carrier. And I apologize tonight, guys. My voice is not the best. I think it's allergies. Okay, so what I did was I took Germany's fleet, I put it all here in this airport, just so it's easier for me to show you. So we have 4 transport planes with an assault glider. Now the assault glider, the advantage with them, so he's 50, and then these transport planes are much faster. So I forget the advantage to, so that's right, transport capacity is 21, whereas these guys, transport capacity is only 10. I think it's a weight of 10, I think is how it works. All right, let's find out. It might be 10. Yeah, you'd have to experiment with that to figure out how many per. I forget off the top of my head what the 10 represents. Just know that the transport capacity is going to be different depending on whether it's a transporter or assault glider, and then also based on your technology too. And the way that you would load folks up is you have, actually I can show you, send them down here. Do I have any? I don't have any guys in there. Let's go here. Okay. So what I did there in order to rebase them, you just click who you want them to move, and then you right click the airport you want to send them to, which that is a naval port, not an airport. That's why I did that. So I right click, and then I do rebase. Now you can send them to reserve as well. This unit's assets will be used to replace the losses of air units running missions out of this airbase, which I'll talk to in a moment. And then you have these other options as well. Okay, so let's get into some of the specifics here in terms of how many planes do you put in a group, and how do you figure that out? So first, what's really interesting is a new feature of the game that I wasn't aware of back when I was playing, is that you can basically change the type of plane you have there if you want more of them. So for example, this interceptor is being upgraded. Now it costs money to go down here. See, it's costing me 2.47 industrial capacity, whereas the normal builds are 4.28, so it's a little bit cheaper. But I'm upgrading this from a fighter bomber. So you take one of these fighter bombers, you click this right here, upgrade it to an interceptor, and then it'll upgrade. Or what you can do is you can upgrade it to close air support as well. So that's this tab right here. We already talked about this in terms of how much supply it's getting from the runway. And then this will tell you effectively how much supply and fuel it is using per day. Now, the rule of thumb typically is in your fighter squadrons, your interceptors, you want to have about 5. So I believe this is still the correct rule. If you have a stack of 6, then it has a combat efficiency of, instead of a combat efficiency of 6 planes, once you go above 5, just think of it this way. The more planes you have in the sky, the more disorganized things get, right? So 5 is the happy spot. If you go above that, you're gonna lose some combat efficiency, and so your 6 planes are gonna be as effective as normally 4. So you might ask yourself, well, why then would I ever want to go above 5? It does make your overall stack stronger, because it spreads out the amount of damage that it takes, and it also does, you can do ultimately more damage. But just know that it's going to be less efficient in combat. And I don't have a way to demonstrate it because I don't have a game up where there's combat going on, but you'll see in the little battle map, when you click the battle and look down in the bottom left, you should be able to see there the stacking penalties and what that is doing to your overall combat efficiency. And it just means that each individual plane is not being as effective as it would if it was in the correct size stack. And there's pros and cons to that, right? If you have your 5 fighter interceptors going against somebody who has like 15, well, those 15 planes aren't going to be nearly as efficient as they would be otherwise, but they're still going to probably beat you because they've got 15 planes, right? So they might lose a lot more than they would otherwise, but they're probably going to win because they have just the sheer volume. So just be aware that there's a trade-off with that. Someone had mentioned that if you had like a stack of 8 fighters, it has a combat efficiency of 4. So it sounds to me like if you're going to overstack, if you use 6 and that's like 3.9 planes, then if you have a stack of 8 fighters and it's combat efficiency of 4 planes, you might as well just go with the 8 planes, right? The 8 fighters. So I usually go with 5 fighter jets, and then I have a lot of reserves to replace those guys. So what I would do is I would take like a couple of fighters. I would have these guys, kind of towards the back of the front lines, and he would be a reserve. So let me take him. And I might say, I want you to go there, and you're going to be a reserve. This unit will be used to replace the losses of air units running missions out of this airbase. Right? So in order for him to be an effective reserve, I'm going to need him to be with those guys. But what you can do, which is I manually do it, is have your reserves manually in the back and then bring them forward as needed. So that's another way to do it as well. Oh, sorry. Now, again, these are, I believe, reliable numbers because people are still relying on them, but just bear with me. There's a stacking penalty in Black Ice of 7%. What does that mean? It means if I have 2 fighter stacks, 5 and 5, and they end up engaging an enemy unit in the same region together, so I have basically all 10 of my fighters involved in that battle at that time, I'm going to get a stacking penalty of potentially 7%. Again, you're gonna be able to see all that stuff during the combat phase. Just realize that when you get too large of your flying stacks, you are going to get that penalty. So in summation, I think anywhere between 5 and 8 aircraft per stack is roughly where you want to be. Now, for your bombers, people usually recommend about 4 to 6 bombers, with maybe, if you're doing 6, 2 fighter bombers in with 4 bombers, or 5 to 7 bombers. That's generally the numbers that people usually throw out there. So 5 to 7 bombers or 4 to 6 bombers. And then if you can, put in 1 or 2 fighter bombers with those to kind of soak up damage, protect your bombers. And then also too, if you get air intercepted, those fighter bombers can provide a little bit of fighter cover for you. I already mentioned this, but it's worth repeating again. People have noted that overstacking does bring penalties, but it also increases your survivability, particularly against AA. So I believe, because it used to be you only suffered AA damage when you stopped at the region. So like this region here has 1 AA. So if I flew over here, but I didn't stop here, you wouldn't suffer AA damage. But I believe now the way the game is if you fly over a province, that this should be shooting AA at you, though I can't guarantee that that's how it is. You'll have to test that out for yourself and determine if that's actually the case. And again, another reason why your larger stacks are going to survive is not just that their strength number is higher, their defensive stats are going to be higher as well. So for example, air defense, all this stuff's going to stack with each other the larger that overall air stack is, and then it's going to spread that damage out. So it can be tricky, but I think as you play the game, you'll kind of figure out for you what the best method is. Everybody has a different way of playing with their Air Force. Just know that there's pros and cons to going either route. Now, you saw what I did here with this guy, making him reserve. He's only going to be an actual, though, reserve if he's at the airport with other planes of his type that he can reserve. Otherwise, you can do what I do, which is I just manually bring these guys forward. Again, depending where they're flying out of, right? So if they're close air support or interceptors, they might be very close to the front line. And so I don't want my reserves very close to the front line. And so I'll keep them back here and then I'll fly them forward. But note, flying them, you do suffer an organizational hit just from taking off. So let's say we go over here, right click, rebase, and fly over there. He suffered a little bit of organization. Actually, he didn't really suffer anything. That's nice. I wonder if it's, so maybe because it's just him, it's the one Air Force base here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So he did. So see how much organization he lost just flying from there to there? That's going to happen as soon as you take off. You're going to suffer some organization hit. Okay. Let's conclude this video with what actions you can give your planes. So our light bombers, for example, say we're at war with Poland, right? I want them to run bombing missions. And I want them to target a specific target. How do we do that? We'll say it's this guy right here. Well, we right click where the region he's in. And then what will happen is just this area, he'll be lit up because we're on single province. And then we'll tell our bombers what we want them to do. For bombers, you're looking at this list right here. Okay, now some of these are kind of self-explanatory. Interdiction is going to affect the green bar here, this organization. Okay. I find honestly interdiction to be the most effective use of the light and the medium bombers. Think of it as, they're flying higher up, and so they're dropping bombs, but they don't have, laser guided bombs or anything like that. They're dummy bombs. And so they're just not going to be as effective at killing troops, but they might be really good at disrupting morale, disrupting the organization of the unit because they're having to scatter and avoid the bombs or whatever. And so they do tend to be really good for interdiction purposes. I think maybe with your light bombers, they might actually be a little bit better at ground than your medium bombers. But really for your medium and your light bombers, interdiction is great. Installation strike, right? If you want to lower their like their naval ports, for example. Runways is their the airports, and then logistical is the logistics chain that we have. So infrastructure. So if they were to say they put a bunch of bombers here, here, and here, these three areas, and went after my logistics, maybe this turns yellow until it gets repaired, right? This goes down. My infrastructure goes down several points in all three of these. And so then I'm not getting supply to the front as effectively. That's what that does. And then we already talked about strategic bombing. Now let me show you this. This is the same. What I'm going to show you with these fighters is the same thing for the bombers. It's just I can actually show it to you with the fighters. Is if we want to send them on a mission, we can send our fighters to a single province, and that's where they'll patrol. So let's say air intercept. Yeah, let me speak to these just really quick. So air intercept is they'll be on the runway, and then when an enemy plane comes into this province, they will take off to intercept it. The alternative is air superiority. They'll actually be in the air over this province for this period of time. Which the same thing with the bombers, by the way. It's auto set to 1 month, but you can make it longer. You can make it shorter. It's however you want to do it. And so it's a good way to kind of automate your aircraft without having to manually do it over and over again. So we tell our bombers we want the bombers to go after that guy, and we want them to do that for 2 weeks. They'll just keep doing that, even if their organization's getting low, even if their planes are getting shot up. There's no like, oh, we're at half strength, let's stop. They're just going to keep doing it. So just be aware of that. And that's why you probably don't want to set these for too long. Now you can have it where they only do it once. Say you want to just do like a 1 night raid. You would set this for tonight, and then you would say turn off continuous. This means that on January 22nd at 1 a.m. Yeah, 1 a.m. They will take off to do the 1 run on that guy, and then that's it. And then they'll land. Okay. Now, for fighters, the downside to air intercept is that, as you saw, we lost organization from our fighter flying from here to here. I believe the same impact occurs for air intercepts, where you actually lose some organization from taking off. And so what might happen is multiple times you go back and land, and then you take off again. And so you're unnecessarily losing organization for that. Whereas air superiority, your fighters will stay up in the air over whatever region you want them at for that period of time until they run out of fuel, and they'll go back. And so they're not taking off and landing as often, which may help your organization. So just keep an eye on that. Again, it's user preference. It's whatever is most comfortable for you. I just realized I sent my transports to a tank. I don't think they're going to be able to transport a tank. Let me move these guys real quick. Yeah, I don't think I have anybody. Yeah, it's got a battle commander in there. Von Kleist. Huh. Okay. Well, I guess we'll try that. Oh, here we go. Now, your transport organization has to be sufficiently high in order for you guys to board. I think it might be 100%, or they won't take off until it's 100%. That's right. Okay, so we talked about there we go. What these do now over here, and then you can do only day, only night, or both. Stance, aggressive, defensive, passive, and then priority. This is basically just the priority amongst your different squadrons. Okay. You might have a particular air mission going on that is really important to you in the moment. You'd make them, priority 1. And then, if you want it to only be a one-time sortie, you would turn that off. Okay. Up here will affect the locality within which this stack of aircraft are going to operate. Currently, we have it in single province. So these don't matter at all because it's just this province right here. Let's say we're concerned about British fighters and bombers coming after Berlin. What we do is we go to Cone because we want it to look like a cone, but in the direction of Britain. We, maybe we won't want max range for these fighters to get it all the way up. As you can see, we can't go very far. It might be because of this guy. Let me get him out of here. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Nope, not much better. But what you can do with the cone is set what direction you want it to go just by moving this around. So in our case, since we're worried about the British, we want it to face that way, just like that, right? And then the cone width obviously affects the width, so we can make it smaller, bigger, like this, so forth. Now the easier approach is to go either region. So we can pick this region. Whoops. Sorry. Pick that region, pick this region, pick this one. Instead of just one province, we pick the whole region. And then the last option you have for your fighters and your bombers is to do a circular area, which you can then affect your range. So in the fighter's case, if we have air superiority, they're going to fly all around this looking for planes to intercept. Now, obviously, the bigger it is, the more fuel they're going to expend. And then also it's more likely they might miss somebody because maybe some bombers come down here while they're up here. And then the same thing with air intercept. They'll stay on the ground until something comes in within this here, and then they'll intercept. Same thing for the cone, right? With this, in this blue area is where we will air intercept or air superiority. The same rules apply for your bombers. You tell your bombers to do, say, interdiction in, say like this size here, but over here in Poland, they will do interdiction missions anytime they spot an infantry or whatever, a ground force in any of these areas. And they'll just pick them off, just bouncing around until there's no more ground forces in this area to hit, or until the time down here that you told them to be active expires. Okay, so for example, superiority, let me just show you an example here. Slow this down. So as you see, he's going around this circle here that we created. Touching all those blue areas. There, now he came back, I think, to refuel. No, he's over here maybe somewhere. Oh, here he is down here. Yeah, so he'll stay up until he's out of fuel. Cool. All right. Transports, let's get him there real quick. So you can see how you can provide some pretty sufficient air cover over your country through this either air superiority or interdiction, right? Get 4 to 5 air intercept fighters. I would probably put them here, here, and then down here, and that was probably enough to cover that front with fighters. And then maybe you have a few in the back as reserves that you bring forward as necessary, or you have a couple parked on the ground that you click that reserve button for them to actually move up to the front and go up with your squadrons up in the air once one's sufficiently damaged. Now, just a reminder, you're going to want lots of reserve aircraft because it takes a long time to repair your aircraft and then also to get your organization back. So you can see this guy's organization is down. Every time your aircraft engage with other aircraft, it's going their organization is going to decrease some. So you're going to really want to focus on technology that boosts your organization for your aircraft, because organization's big for your your Air Force. Okay. Now for this, I believe, yeah. So if we had enough transports here that could put all these guys on there, it would turn green. Now we have 30 plus 20, so 50 weight. Now I don't know how it determines what's weight's what, but the way I would normally do this, okay, let me see. Maybe I can put that guy on there. Let me see. Nope. Okay. Let's go ahead and take the anti-tank. No. Good Lord. Okay. I think I know what it might be, actually. Maybe the horse transport. Yeah, anyways. These guys aren't built to be on planes, so that's probably why. So you probably need the paratroopers. Typically, yeah, actually I think they have to be paratroopers now that I think about it. Or the equivalent. That's probably why they can't. But that'll be, this will highlight, this will turn on. You click, you load them, but your transports won't be able to fly until they're 100% organization. This function works the same way, by the way, for your water transports, your amphibious craft. You just put your guy in the same region as the naval port, and then you just go ahead and click this button right here. And that'll put them on there. Okay, two final things to talk on here before we conclude this video. Number one is you can actually, if you want to, you don't have to, but for command, you can have a headquarters, chain of command for your aircraft. So you go ahead and get your, where's it at? This one right here, Air Force headquarters. And then notice you get some bonuses to having your own chain of command for your Air Force. That's a Black Ice thing, and they did it, originally they did it and it was just aesthetic, but now it actually does give you bonuses if you want to go that route. And I think the best way to do it is you would create like an Air Force headquarters and then attach it either to an elevated Air Force, like say like a, nope. Where are you at? I was gonna say Army group, but I don't know where the Army groups are at. Army groups are your green organization. Or you could attach them to like an orange army. Preferably maybe a guy with the supply trade to reduce the amount of fuel that you're using for your aircraft. But just be aware that that's now an option. You don't have to just use the Army chain of command headquarters to do it. And the same thing for the Navy. It also has the option as well. And you'll just want to figure out where in the Army chain of command you want to attach that Air Force headquarters chain of command to. It might even be as high up as the actual, theater command. I don't know. It's however you want to do it. It's whatever way you can maximize doing that. But what you can do is you can take, this is the last thing I want to speak to, is your commanders. So you can take different air traits and put these guys in your Air Force chain of command to stack bonuses. Now, what you're going to want to do is get their levels up before you do that. And when they're operating headquarters, they're not going to be getting any experience for what's going on below them. But what you could do is, for let's see. I'm looking for a trait that'd be nice to layer. Anyways, notice that these traits, they're either for fighters or for bombers. What you're going to want for your headquarters commanders are guys who kind of give a well-rounded bonus to everybody in the Air Force. They're not specific to fighters or bombers. And so really that's going to come down to experience gains and bonuses. the War Merit Cross, stuff like that, right? And then as the levels go up, now you can bump these guys up on your own if you want. And what's kind of funny is like you can promote a guy up and then decide you want to, promote him down. And they don't suffer any morale penalties for it. At least I don't think they do. So I think that's kind of funny. But if you want guys to be able to manage more planes than they currently can. So for example, 1 star is, let's see, let's I think this guy's a 1 star, isn't he? Ooh, 5 skill level. Good for him. But he's only a 1 star, so you can promote him up further, but he can only handle 7 planes, which actually for Black Ice, that's good, right? Because you're not going to be probably flying more than 7 or 8 in a stack anyways. But if we were to promote him to 2 star, then he could fly 10 planes. So that's how it works. But more likely than not, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be promoting him up, not to fly squadrons, but to be in charge of your Air Force headquarters or something like that, right? Because you do need that chain of command, and each chain of command that goes up, as you'll see in my organization video, each chain of command that goes up, you need to have a certain number of stars to be able to manage that level of command. So 1 star being obviously division, and then I think you need to be a 2 star to have the core command, or the that next level up, like this one right here. So he is von Lieb is 2 star, right? But he won't be able to handle. So let's go ahead and create this here. So Army requires a 3 star, and so forth. Now I don't know for this one. I think it's 4 as well. Yeah. But same thing for your Air Force chain of command and Navy. You're gonna have the same rules as well. Okay, so I hope you guys found this helpful. If you liked the video, please smash that like button, as everybody says. If you're not a subscriber yet, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, it'll help other people find the channel. And if there's anything else that you guys know about the Air Force on this game for Black Ice that you want to include, throw that in the comments section. Or if you still have questions about what to do with the Air Force or how to use it, please let me know in the comment section down below. I will probably be doing a Let's Play of this as well, so you might see how I do things when I'm playing as well. But again, it's a lot of what's great about this game is that it is personal preference on how you do a lot of this stuff. So size of your air stacks, to how you manage them, to what you do with them, right? It's all very customizable, including technology and how you tech things up and what you want to tech them up as. I didn't go into the technology in this video because I have a technology tutorial that I've already done. But if you have any questions about aircrafts or Air Force's tech, let me know in the comments section. Hopefully I can help you out. But it's not like the Navy, where certain aspects of the ships don't upgrade. You can go ahead and get the new light bomber prototype, for example, and then what'll happen is that your light bombers will upgrade over time. So these guys will upgrade to the new model, in time. So right now these are the twin engine pilot training 36, twin engine ground crew training 36, light bomber prototype 36. Well, if we research the 38, it'll automatically upgrade over time. And that'll happen so long as you have your upgrades, you have some IC being spent on upgrades. Okay, eventually it'll get there. And if you want to make sure they upgrade before anybody else does, you just go in here and you prioritize them. So you hit prioritize. That'll put them towards the front of the line of your IC that you're spending on upgrades, and get them to those 1938 prototype models sooner rather than later. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next video where we talk about the Navy.